Hello, it's Coach Josh here again. Finally, my hand's starting to heal so I can make a fist. Still hurts like crap right around the pinky, like right in this little muscle area. That's regardless. What we're doing today is movement, basic movement, okay? So, you get in your fighting stance, right? We don't want to be too square. Everything's open and available. Plus, takedowns for doubles are really easy. We don't want to be too long. The low kicks and singles are way too easy, but at least we got a really good shield with our arm. So we want to be in the middle somewhere to where we still have a shield with our front arm and shoulder, and our leg isn't super exposed. We can still turn out our knee and block leg kicks, and we're still able to dig under hooks and stuff the takedown. Okay, so we get in the middle somewhere here. Okay, cheap chin down, hands up. There's a bunch of different stances we can do with our hands, but for right now we keep it simple. Elbows in, by our chin. That's it, simple. Okay, so what we want to do, I'm going to step back so you can see my feet. If I'm moving forward, I'm pushing off the ground with my back foot, stepping, and then sliding back into my stance. Okay, I always want to elongate my stance and then shorten it back to a normal stance. Being too narrow is bad for pretty much everything. You're easily taken down and pushed over, so your actual balance is bad. And you can't really throw any kind of power from here. There's nothing good about having your feet together like this, okay? So when we do step, we elongate, which in the elongated stance, I have a lot of power. I can strike throw big punches. And I also have the ability to scoot back or go forward and still then get back into a good stance, okay? So here, I step forward, I elongate, and then shorten. If I go the other way, I push off the front foot, step back with the back foot, and then get back into my stance, okay? So that's forward and back. Same thing for side to side. So I'm going to go over to the right here. I'm going to push off the right foot to step to the left, okay? And then I'm going to slide my foot over. So I elongate my stance and then get back into my stance. Opposite direction, same thing. Push off this foot, move this leg. Boom, boom. Now I'm in my stance. So those are just forward, backward, side to side. If we're going to go in a circle pattern, which you see most boxers and a decent number of kickboxers do, to where they're going in some kind of a circle, well, what that entails is that we have to step off and then pivot somehow. So if I want to make a wide circle, then I'm going to step almost completely sideways and then pivot into this stance over here. Now, I would continue to do that, so I'm going to do this at a distance. I'm going to continue to do that. So here, boom, 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 boom. Okay, so that's circling off fairly wide. And then if I want to do it, I want to make it close, then I'm going to step more forward and then pivot. So if I'm doing in between, I'm here, 45, boom, here. So just enough to slip out of range, but not enough to stay inside. Now, if I wanted to just get a good angle and still be really close inside, I'm just gonna step forward and then pivot. So let's say the opponent's right here, I'm right in your face, right? And I wanna stay pretty much in your face. Step forward to pivot. Now I just have the angle to throw from the side, get the takedown, whatever, okay? So again, when we pivot, we're gonna be stepping, so doing the same motion as we move left and right, but then we're gonna pivot while this moves, foot's coming back over, okay? Now we do it to the other side. It's a little bit more difficult. It looks easier, but it's actually more difficult. Is we want to step out, right? And then we're pivoting, but when we pivot, we have to just turn our hips towards the opponent, okay? So here, I step out, pivot to be looking towards the opponent. That simple. Walk, pivot, and that's how I make my circle that way. So if I'm circling to the left, boom, pivot that way. Circling to the right, boom, pivot that way. I can still, always after I pivot, I'm in good fighting stance to throw whatever I want to throw, okay? That's forward, back, left, right, pivot left, pivot right. Now we have the shifts. Now shifting, when you're throwing punches or kicking or kneeing or whatever, straight, there's a straight one and then there's one off to the side. So the straight shift, you go over the knee. So if I'm throwing a right hand, for instance, this is a really important shift to learn. If I'm throwing a right hand, I'm going to go over this knee so I can step forward and be in basically the opposite fighting stance, but on the other side. So here, so I'm basically stamping and turning into this stance, but I'm going over that knee. So here, boom. And I always have my head going side to side as I'm coming in. That way, it's not an easy target to clip, okay? Chin down always. So that's shifting forward. You can do the same thing for a knee, and then you just shift right into the other stance. And then you can do the same thing for a kick, front kick, boom, and you're in your other stance. Whatever, it doesn't really matter. You're just moving forward. You're allowing yourself to switch stances. Another movement option, or sorry, we're still on shifts. Now we have the D'Amato shift, which is really important. It's really like made famous by Mike Tyson and thus brought about by Cus D'Amato, his trainer. What we want to be is here, we're going to shift by just hopping and switching our hips. So I'm going to go here. So I go from, it's when you're inside. You want to use it when you're inside. You're not going to see my footwork here. I'm going to move back so you can see that. But to see what it looks like if I'm in your face, here, shifting over so I can throw my uppercut or my shot to the body. Or again, I can do the takedown from there. So I'm at a distance so you can see my legs. Here we go. So I'm going to customize shift. Boom. I'm over on this side. Loaded for that uppercut. Loaded for the body shot. Even switch kick from there. So it's all ready and available after the shift. It's a really useful shift. And this is usually from your stance over here and you're going off to the side that has the lead leg. You can D'Amato shift to the other side. It's a little bit trickier. It's harder to do, but it's definitely doable. But it's much easier if that foot that you're going towards is closer to the front. So if I'm in a real long stance, D'Amato shifting this way is going to be really tough. So usually if I'm gonna D'Amato shift to that side, then I have to shorten my stance a little bit. So that's why I'm going to do it on the inside. Where usually when you're on the inside, you don't want to have a real long stance. You want to have a short stance. So you're inside, throwing your hooks, uppercuts. You're already loaded for both hands, so you don't have to worry about that. So if I'm going to D'Amato shift again to this side, I want to have this pretty square so I can just hop over to the side and be ready for a big uppercut, body shot, elbow, knee, takedown. And again, if they start running away after you D'Amato shift, so you're here, and then you D'Amato shift, now it's set up for the kick as they're running away. So from distance, so again, it's easier to D'Amato shift with the lead leg. So here, boom, right? It's harder to do it this way. So we shorten that leg up, square up, that's what we call it. And then from here, ready to D'Amato shift on that side. Okay. Other movement options include hops, which are basically like, skips. So if I do a skip hook, a regular hook, I just stand here, boom, throw the hook. If I do a skip hook, I'm going to jump off the lead leg here, boom, and cover that distance. So I'm just skipping forward as I throw the hook. And you can do that with a pendulum kick. And you're inside, you can do that. You can just, skip forward just to mess with them. It's just a way to make people faint, or a way for them to react. So it's useful in those regards. But normally when we're going, we want to walk forward because we want to be as close to the ground as often as possible. Unless we have a very specific thing we're trying to do, we want to be in our stance and on the ground. So that way, if we get hit while we're moving, we still have balance in our legs to be able to get out of the situation. Okay. Okay. Last one that's pretty useful is just skipping horizontally. So this one was like for coming in forward. Now we're just gonna circle off. It's like a warm up that most people do for jiu-jitsu and some striking classes. Is just shuffle. Real simple. You just jump off of this leg, switch the leg, and then let the leg move forward. The other one that you jumped off of move forward. So you just go, boom, like this. It's a replacement, like a replacement side kick, but you don't have to worry about really driving your feet. You're more floating. It's a way to kind of get your bearings if you get hit hard or if you're trying to irritate your opponent. So if I'm just circling around here, I can get back into my stance. Come back out, back over here, get back into my stance. So I can use that as a way to kind of be a buffer. Running has been shown to be an effective thing in self-defense and in fighting. So again, if you're like, oh, I don't know what's going on, if you run away and then but you always got to get back in your stance. You got to be ready because you can't just run forever. Well, maybe you can. Depends on how fast you are, how slow your opponent is. But regardless, don't think that like that, especially if you're just training for fun and getting better, and that's what your goal is. Last, because this is like a combination of a couple movements. It's called the J hook. It's super important. So if someone's coming at you and they're charging you, you can shuffle back as long as you want, but then you can't throw anything, and they can pretty much go faster forward than you can go backwards. Very rarely is the case that's not the case. So we're gonna shuffle back. He's gonna just charge in. She's gonna charge in. So instead of that, what we're going to do is we're going to do that same shuffle step that we did before, but this time we're going to face our hips just like when we did when we pivoted. So when we pivoted inwards, we faced our hips, we're now at this angle, okay? Now at J hook, we do the same thing, but we're going to do a shuffle step back first, then do the pivot, but also going backwards instead of forwards. So we're here, we're going to shuffle step and J hook. Okay. So if they charge, we're now cutting the angle. We're ready to fire if they charge. Now the opposite, it's not really a J hook. I guess a reverse J hook is the way to put it. This is more difficult. So what we're going to do is we're going to skip back first, step over to the side, and pivot off this way. So we're doing the same kind of J or hook pattern, but we're doing it to our backside. So this is more difficult here. Come charging in. So you have to pause, boom, pop. There's that little three-step process that is difficult. So step, step. So we're skipping over here. Skipping, fading away. So that way if they charge forward, we're out on the side. The difficult part is actually once we step back, to not be leaning so far back that we can't counter. You want to be neutral so you can counter. If you skip back and you lean way back here, you don't have time to come forward and counter with anything, really. So that's basic movement. Squatting is good. Rolling is good. Mike Tyson. We'll learn some extra things as we go forward, but that's basics to start working on. Thanks.